Modern bathtubs look nothing like tubs of the Middle Ages or those wooden tubs we see in Western films. To achieve supreme comfort, the designer explores new shapes via computer and design software, tools which make for speedy review of various shapes. Then a model is produced. This one, produced on a 1/6 scale, is made of cardboard, but other models can be made of clay, polystyrene, or by stereolithography. Manufacturing begins with an acrylic sheet. It is heated to about 200 degrees centigrade with ceramic elements. The sheet becomes soft and malleable. So that it takes the form of the mold, thousands of tiny holes in the shell suction the sheet by vacuum. The mold must cool before it can be opened. Powerful ventilators blow air directly onto the mold, lowering the temperature to 77 degrees in 4 to 6 minutes. The ventilators are then withdrawn. Then the shell is easily removed from the mold, and that's because it weighs a mere 16 kilos. To make a tub in another shape, they change the mold. They put it in another acrylic sheet. It is heated on the ceramic and fiberglass mold. The little holes vacuum out air, and the job is done. At any rate, the molded acrylic sheet is not sturdy enough to be filled with water, so it must be reinforced with fiberglass. This is the fiberglass. Mixed with resin, it is blown onto the mold by a robotic unit. Stored in reservoirs, the resin is carried to the robot by pumps. Here it produces a chemical reaction between the fiberglass and the resin, which produces a reinforced shell. Laminating is one of the most important steps. With brush and roller, they eliminate all air bubbles which could weaken the tub. This makes the fiberglass resin adhere perfectly to the acrylic shell. The process requires 75 minutes. The shell is then transported to the milling department. The shell is now dry and hard. They can extract it manually, but here they use digitally controlled machines. The operation begins with the trimming of the edges of the bathtub. During this operation, the robot will also pierce openings for the drains, the whirlpool jets and the air jets, for the overflow as well as for ambiance light. The bathtub, almost completed, is now sent to another workshop. They can now install the pump, the piping, and the blower. These last operations are done manually. The pump is installed for the whirlpool system as well as the PVC pipes, whose joints have been hermetically sealed to prevent any leaks. Finally, to make sure that everything is functioning well, each bathtub undergoes a water test. Some 13 steps have elapsed, plus 3 to 5 hours of work depending on the tub being made. It almost invites you to climb in.
We open and close them several times a day in and day out, and seldom give them a second thought. But imagine your home without doors. For one thing, you'd have absolutely no privacy. And what would you slam when you get angry? The first factory makes the doors plywood facing. They start by loading logs into steaming basins for 3 days. This de-ices them in the winter and softens the wood fiber. Inside the factory, the steamed logs line up for the debarker, a machine that removes the bark. The operator projects concentric circles and uses a laser to carefully center the log on the debarker. Positioning is crucial for two reasons: so that as little wood as possible comes off with the bark, and to ensure the debarked log ends up perfectly cylindrical. That maximizes the amount of wood veneer a log will yield. The next step is called rotary cutting. As the log spins, a lathe skims off a sheet of wood veneer just 0.6 of a millimeter thick. The average log yields 134 linear meters of veneer. Next, they unroll the veneer and cut it into sheets. Then they stack the sheets by identical grain patterns. Using a laser to position the blade, they cut through the stack to take out visual defects. Then they glue the pieces together. To make veneer sheets for the front of the plywood door facing, the side that will show, they line up the wood's grain and other features in mirror image. For the back, the side that won't show, they assemble the defective parts they cut out earlier. They use 3 veneer sheets to make up the plywood door facing. They apply glue to both sides of one sheet, then sandwich it between 2 other sheets. They feed the 3 sheets through a hot press at more than 100 degrees Celsius. In a minute and a half, the glue cures, and those 3 sheets of veneer become a 3-ply panel of plywood. Then they sand the panel. Plywood door facings can be made from more than 15 different species of wood, from birch and oak to maple and mahogany. At the second factory, they make the core of the door. They glue together strips of wood to form the middle, then frame them with pieces of white pine. A press pushes the core pieces together, then activates the glue not by heat as most presses do, but by microwaves. Next, they sand and calibrate the core. After the glue machine coats the core, they stick a plywood door facing on each side. They stack a few doors at a time into a cold press for a half hour until the glue dries. Then set them aside while the glue cures for another 8 hours. Next, they size the width and length to the final dimension, bevel the edges, and cut the exact height of the door. Then they inspect the door on both sides. A machine prepares the door for hinges. Then another machine cuts the hole for the knob. The finishing process takes just 70 seconds per door. One side is sanded, stained, and sealed, then sanded again and varnished. The machine then flips the door over and does the same thing to the other side.